The August heat shimmered off the cracked pavement of Beale Street. His 12-year-old, Marcus Johnson's fingers danced across his father's old guitar strings. His voice, rough but powerful, carried the haunting melody through the humid Memphis air. Tourists tossed coins into his worn baseball cap, but Marcus wasn't performing for money. He was singing for his soul, channeling the spirit of the king himself. What he didn't know was that destiny was about to walk right up to his makeshift stage, disguised in sunglasses and a simple black shirt, about to change his life forever. Marcus had been coming to this same corner of Beale Street every Saturday for 3 months now. His grandmother's medical bills weren't going to pay themselves, and at 12, he was already the man of the house. His father's 1960 Gibson acoustic, the only thing of value left after the foreclosure, had become his lifeline. The tourists loved his raw talent. There was something authentic about the way he performed, something that transported listeners back to the golden age of Memphis music. His voice carried the weight of experiences far beyond his years, shaped by hardship but polished by an innate understanding of rhythm and blues. That boy's got something special, Mrs. Henderson from the corner store often told her customers. She'd known Marcus since he was 5, running errands for his grandmother. Now, watching him perform with such passion and maturity, she saw echoes of the legends who once walked these very streets. Marcus had learned every classic by heart, not from recordings, but from his grandfather's stories. The old man had worked as a janitor at Sun Records in the 1950s and had witnessed history in the making. He'd seen young artists pour their hearts out in that legendary studio, and he'd passed those stories down to Marcus with the reverence of sacred scripture. Today felt different somehow. The crowd was larger, more attentive. A man in dark sunglasses and a black shirt had been standing at the back for nearly an hour, not moving, just listening. Marcus noticed him, but kept performing, lost in the music that seemed to flow through him like electricity. The stranger's presence felt familiar somehow, though Marcus couldn't place why. As the afternoon sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the historic street, Marcus finished his set with a powerful rendition of a beloved ballad. The crowd erupted in applause, but the man in sunglasses simply nodded slowly, a knowing smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Something extraordinary was about to unfold on this ordinary Memphis afternoon. The crowd began to disperse, dropping final contributions into Marcus's cap. The boy was counting his earnings, $37, enough for this week's groceries, when he noticed the mysterious stranger approaching. Up close, the man seemed oddly familiar, though Marcus couldn't quite place him. There was something in his walk, a confident swagger that seemed to command attention, even in such a simple gesture. "Son," the stranger said, his voice carrying a distinctive southern drawl, "you've got a gift there." A real gift. He removed his sunglasses, revealing kind eyes that seemed to sparkle with mischief and wisdom. "Mind if I ask where you learned to sing like that?" Marcus looked up, guitar still in his lap. "My grandfather taught me, sir. He used to work at Sun Records back in the day. Said he met all the greats." There was pride in the boy's voice, mixed with the natural shyness that came with meeting new people. The stranger chuckled, a warm sound that seemed to resonate with the very spirit of Beale Street. "Sun Records, you say? Well, I'll be. That's where it all began for a lot of folks." He gestured to the guitar. "That's a fine instrument you've got there. Looks like it has some stories to tell." "It was my daddy's," Marcus replied, his fingers automatically finding a chord. "He passed when I was 8. Mama says I've got his musical soul." The boy's voice wavered slightly, but his resolve remained strong. This stranger had an odd effect on him. Marcus felt like he could trust him completely. Though they'd just met. The man nodded thoughtfully, then did something unexpected. He sat down on the sidewalk next to Marcus, right there on the hot pavement, seemingly oblivious to the stares from passing tourists. "You know," he said conversationally, "I knew a lot of folks at Sun Records myself. Spent some time there when I was about your age, actually. Different world back then, but the music was everything. Marcus studied the stranger's face, noting the gentle humor in his expression, and the way his presence seemed to command respect without demanding it. "Are you a musician, sir?" he asked, curiosity overcoming his usual reserve. The stranger smiled and held out his hand. "You could say that, son. Name's Elvis Presley." The words hung in the air like a magical incantation, and Marcus felt his world tilt sideways. The guitar nearly slipped from his grasp as his eyes widened in disbelief. But you single quotes double quotes," Marcus stammered, his voice barely a whisper. His grandfather had told him countless stories about the king of rock and roll, had described every detail of the man's legendary performances at Sun Records. And now, impossibly, Elvis Presley was sitting on a Memphis sidewalk, talking to him like they were old friends. Elvis laughed, that famous chuckle that had charmed millions. "I know what you're thinking, son. Folks say I died back in '77, and maybe, in a way, I did. But the music never dies, and sometimes a man gets a chance to come back and see what he's left behind." He gestured around at the bustling street. "This place, these sounds, this spirit, it's all still here." Marcus's mind raced. This couldn't be real, yet everything about the moment felt authentic. The way Elvis spoke, moved, even the subtle mannerisms his grandfather had described, it all matched perfectly. "Sir, if you're really, if you're him, could you maybe double quotes?" He held up his guitar with trembling hands. "You want me to play something?" Elvis asked, his eyes twinkling with amusement. He took the guitar gently, cradling it like an old friend. His fingers found the frets with practiced ease, and suddenly the instrument seemed to come alive in his hands. The first chord rang out pure and true, and Marcus felt tears welling up in his eyes. "Your grandfather was right, you know," Elvis said as he tuned the guitar. Sun Records was where the magic happened. Sam Phillips was looking for someone who could bring together different worlds, country, blues, gospel, and somehow I stumbled into that little studio and found my voice. He strummed a few more chords, the sound drawing a small crowd, despite the impossibility of the situation. "But you, son," Elvis continued, handing the guitar back to Marcus. "You've already found yours. I heard it in every note you sang today. That's not something that can be taught, that comes from somewhere deeper." Elvis stood up, dusting off his black shirt, and extended his hand to Marcus. "Come on, son. Let's give these folks a real show." Marcus took the offered hand, feeling a surge of electricity at the contact. Together, they positioned themselves in the center of the gathering crowd, the guitar between them like a bridge connecting past and present. "Now," Elvis said, his voice carrying that familiar commanding presence, "let's show them what Memphis music is really about." He began to clap out a rhythm, and Marcus instinctively followed, their voices blending in perfect harmony. The song they chose was one of the classics, but their interpretation was fresh and alive, infused with the raw energy of Beale Street itself. The crowd grew larger as word spread through the historic district. People couldn't quite believe what they were seeing, but they couldn't look away either. Here was a young boy, singing with all his heart, accompanied by a mysterious stranger who moved and sounded exactly like the king of rock and roll himself. Whether it was really Elvis or simply an incredible impersonator didn't seem to matter. The magic was undeniably real. As they finished their impromptu performance, Elvis placed his hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Remember this moment, son," he said quietly, his voice meant only for the boy. "Remember that music isn't about fame or money. It's about connection. It's about touching people's hearts and reminding them that we're all part of something bigger." Marcus nodded, tears streaming down his face. He understood now why his grandfather had spoken of Elvis with such reverence. It wasn't just about the talent or the success. It was about the generosity of spirit, the willingness to lift others up. Elvis reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver pendant shaped like a music note. "This was given to me by Sam Phillips himself," he said, fastening it around Marcus's neck. "He told me it would bring good luck to any young musician with a true heart." I think it's time it found a new home. As the crowd began to disperse, chattering excitedly about what they'd witnessed, Elvis put his sunglasses back on. "Keep playing, son. Keep singing. The world needs voices like yours." He began to walk away, then turned back one last time. "And Marcus, take care of your grandmother. Family's the most important thing of all." Marcus watched until Elvis disappeared into the crowd, wondering if he'd ever see him again. The silver pendant felt warm against his chest, and his guitar seemed to hum with new energy. That evening, he counted his earnings, over $300, the most he'd ever made in a single day. But more importantly, he'd learned that music was about more than survival. It was about keeping the spirit of Memphis alive for future generations. Ready to discover your own musical story? Visit your local music store today and start your journey. Every legend begins with a single note.